welcome to the GoEngineer user tips and tricks for EPDM, this month's webcast for Lunch and Learn. My name is Jeff Girardi. I manage our EPDM professional services team, so the folks that do the installations, business process workshops, configurations, and help provide you support. So this afternoon, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at some things that we can do in Enterprise PDM that are to enhance our personal productivity, and they're things that we can do all on our own without having to go to the administration tool, without having to require special permissions in order to set up. These are all going to be client-side settings that we can take advantage of and put in place on our personal machines. So really the intended audience here are for EPDM users who want to improve their personal productivity and effectiveness, using EPDM, the layout of the interface. We're going to be talking about some of the search tools, things like that. So as an agenda for this afternoon, we're going to first be talking about automatic logins and how to either enable or disable automatic logins for your particular vault. We're going to be talking about some of the view settings or the display options that we can put in place and adjust. And then lastly, we're going to finish up by talking about the search tool, some of the syntax that's available for us, and how to really become expert users of that search tool. So to start out, we'll go over how to either enable or disable automatic logins. So most often, EPDM's configured to use the Active Directory username and password. So you've got just one set of credentials that's valid for logging into your computer in the morning, as well as logging into the vault. So it abides by the same password policies and expirations and things like that. It doesn't have to be managed separately. When you update your password for your computer, it's automatically reflected in EPDM. That's a very common setup. So when you go and access your vault, you're probably prompted with a screen like this that asks you to input your username and password. So if you're not a fan of this screen popping up and prompting you to log in, we can actually set up our local client to automatically log us in using some stored credentials. Okay? So we actually do this through the administration tool. There's a spot called local settings, which every user has access to, and then we can go to the automatic logon settings. So let's take a look at where we can find that. So if we come here and go to the administration tool, we can also go to Programs, SOLIDWORKS Enterprise PDM, Administration. And this brings us to the administration tool where we've got the local settings section here and the settings. I can double click on this to open it up, and it takes me to the automatic logon screen. First thing I do is select my vault view, and then if I wanted to force it to use or not use automatic logins, I can uncheck the box that says use server default, and I can specify here to use automatic logins for a particular vault. And you can enter in the username and or password that you're interested in having it log you in with, or when connected to Active Directory, as I mentioned, you can simply select the option to log in as the currently logged in Windows user. So it saves that dialog from popping up and prompting you to log in. Since I do a lot of testing and administration of the system, I prefer to be able to type in my login. So you can force that as well by unchecking Use Server Default and leaving this Use Automatic Login unchecked as well. So the next thing that we'll start to talk about is some of our Vault View settings. Okay, we get to these inside of our Vault environment through the Display Options tab. And there's a couple of these that I highly recommend that you turn on that aren't turned on by default. Okay, so specifically the ones that we're interested in looking at are Set Focus to Active Configuration, Show Bitmap for SOLIDWORKS files, and Show Full UI in SOLIDWORKS Preview. So I'll go ahead and show you each of those, and then we'll talk about why they might be important. So if I first come and browse into my Vault, I have it set up on my C drive. And here in my Display Options, this is where I can set or unset the active configuration, show bitmap, and show full UI. Okay? So to get an understanding of what these options do, let's take a look at one of our files. I'll select an assembly here. And this assembly, if we look at its data card, has several configurations, okay, SOLIDWORKS configurations. Table, bevel, head motion, design validation, head down. So all of my configurations show up here as different tabs in my data card. I also have this tab out in front called the At Configuration. And you may notice that there's different information, or can be different or missing information on the various configuration tabs. Okay. The At configuration out here displays for us the file custom properties, whereas each of these individual configuration tabs show us configuration-specific custom properties inside of SOLIDWORKS. So by default, I prefer to look at the file custom properties first, okay, especially since that's what's displayed here in my details view in Windows Explorer. Look at the file custom properties first, and then if I need to interrogate and go to specific configuration properties, I can do that here on the data card. Okay. When I have this option selected that sets the focus to the active configuration, okay, so I'll select that option. When I come through and select files, it's automatically going to default to showing me the configuration tab for whatever the last saved or the active configuration was when the file got checked in. I'm not in the habit of using configuration-specific custom properties extensively, and most of our customers aren't in that habit either. So that means that every time I would come in here, see fewer properties than I expected, and have to come in and select the At tab or the File Custom Properties every time that I wanted to view that information. So my preference is to, again, display options and turn off Set Focus to Active Configuration. The second display option that we'll talk about is Show Bitmap for SOLIDWORKS files. So we're all well aware that there's a Preview tab here in Windows Explorer. And for our CAD files, it shows an eDrawings preview, which lets us zoom and rotate and use the measure tool and do all those things that we can do in eDrawings. Well, if I'm browsing around in my Vault and clicking on files, things like that, it's going to go ahead and load each of those files into eDrawings as I'm clicking through the Vault. For single parts, for small, simple parts, that may not be a big deal. We may not notice it happening. But for larger assemblies, it may take a couple of seconds to actually load that preview into eDrawings and make it available to rotate around. So that's going to be fairly painful. Okay, if I come in here and turn this Show Bitmap option off, as I go through and browse the Vault, we can see we're waiting a couple of seconds each time for it to actually load that preview in place. Okay, If I change my display option and say show a bitmap, it's going to give me that SOLIDWORKS thumbnail preview, okay, which loads much faster, okay, than the actual eDrawings preview. And if I was interested in then interrogating this in 3D and spinning it, all I have to do is click on the image, and it'll launch it in the eDrawings previewer. Okay, so this is a much preferred option when clicking around in the vault. It's very quick to actually load up these thumbnail images as compared to the full-blown assembly or part in eDrawings. The other thing that I recommend is while you're just generally browsing the vault, don't be selected on the preview tab. Look at the data card tab or some other piece of information where it loads very quickly rather than having to load up a preview each time. The last display option that I want to highlight for you is the show full UI in the SOLIDWORKS preview. So when we are looking at the eDrawings preview, you'll notice that I have the menu bar up here, which allows me to snap to certain views. It allows me to measure components. It allows me to look at markups or section views if they've been permitted in this eDrawing. So I get this toolbar here available for me when I select that Show Full UI in SOLIDWORKS Preview. So if we were to turn that one off, okay, you'll notice that my menu bar went away. And so it makes it much more difficult. I'd have to right-click, select the view that I want. It's just more efficient, in my opinion, to have that menu bar available to us in eDrawings. So again, the defaults are almost exactly opposite when you install the Enterprise PDM client, and these are not globally accessible, meaning there's no way to set an option in the administration tool. These are individual user preferences, so you can go in and make the adjustments as I've indicated here. The next topic that we'll cover as it relates to viewing files and the browser interface is taking advantage of the details view. Okay, we are embedded into Windows Explorer, so we've got the ability to look at thumbnails or icons or a list or anything like that. But I really recommend the details view. Oftentimes, PDM administrators add in additional columns to that details view that allows you to look at the part number or the description or the revision or material or whatever other information has been deemed critical. So you get that information in addition to what state is the file in, who is it checked out by. All of that becomes immediately obvious when we're in the details view. For a lot of users, however, as they navigate into different folders, their view style always changes from details to thumbnails to icons to a list, and it's not consistent across the folders. So one of the ways that we can do this is by adjusting our folder options inside of Windows by going to the Tools, Folder Options. Again, this is the Windows tools, not the EPDM tools drop-down. In Windows 7, it's hidden by default. So what you're going to do is tap the Alt key, and you'll get this File, Edit, View, Tools, and Help menu available. So inside of my PDM browser, when I tap the Alt key, you'll notice my menu bar becomes available here. And I'll go to Tools, Folder Options, and when I hit the View tab, I can actually take whatever view style is currently applied and say apply it to all folders. Okay? This only works when we're at the root level of our vault. Okay, so I'm in a subfolder called Projects and a subfolder called Miter Saw right now. and my option to apply to folders is grayed out. If I instead go back to the root level of my vault, okay, set my view style to details, which is how I prefer it, tap the Alt key and go to Tools, Folder Options. Now I can apply this view style to all folders, okay? And that means that as I browse through the vault and go into subfolders and all of that, it's going to maintain that details view style. It's going to lock that view style for me so that by default, as I browse through various folders, I'm still in my details view. Okay, so I have all the PDM information available to me at a glance. So those are a couple of the views tips that I have in terms of how you want to update your interface, some of the options that you want applied. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about finding the information that we're looking for with the search tool. Okay, a lot of people I find don't actually know how to use the search tool most effectively. There's some wildcards that we can use. There's some other search syntax that we can use to help refine our results and find the specific files that we're looking for. Okay, so the first thing that we'll talk about are wildcards. Okay, so when we enter a search term into a field in the search tool, there's an implied wildcard at the beginning and at the end of the term that we're searching for. So, for example, in the example here, if I search for the word work, okay, it's going to return me results that contain the word work somewhere in the file name. Okay, so we'll take a look at that first. So I'll come into my vault. I have a folder set up specifically for these search examples. Okay, so I've got my two files here, homework and workout. If I were to launch my search tool just by clicking the search button there, and I type the name work into my search criteria, okay, as expected, I get the two search results. If I were to explicitly define a wildcard, okay, and we can use the star as a wildcard for any string of characters or the question mark for a single character, okay, then it's only going to look for file names that begin with work and not that contain it anywhere else. So I'll rerun this search, and you'll notice that it only returns me one result, which is workout.docx, because I've said only search for things that begin with work, okay, as opposed to the implied wildcards when I don't specify one. Okay. If we're talking about multiple searches, okay, or searching for phrases, for example, every search term that we put in place in our vault, okay, can be separated either by a space or by a comma, and those are evaluated with an OR. Okay, so if I were to search for the term red post, that would return me results where red was contained anywhere in the word, post was contained anywhere in the word, or red post was contained in the file name. So let's take a look at how that would function. So here, if I look for the file name red post separated by a space, those are treated as two independent search terms. So it's looking for basically star red star and separately star post star. So you can see that I get the scared result because it contains RED, I get poster result because it contains POST. I get red socks because it contains the word red, red post, and then just red. If I wanted to look for this term or this phrase specifically in the file name, okay, and this is strictly for use in the file name search field, I can put double quotes around the phrase that I'm looking for, and it will return me the single result red post that matches that phrase exactly. This would also be similar if I said red star post. Okay, and actually in this case, I need to put in a second wildcard to handle the file extension. Right? Whenever I specify a wildcard, I need to specify that in all of the locations where I'm wanting a wildcard. So use of multiple wildcards in your search criteria is also acceptable. Okay. When we're talking about searching on a variable value instead of the file name, so for example, if I'm looking at the description, okay, if I search on a description for red, I expect it to return me these 4 results, right? There's red here, red here, red here, and then red here. So let me run the search tool, this time searching for description of red, and I get the 4 results as expected. When again searching for a variable instead of a file name, I can use the equals sign. Okay, so if I said equals red, I can use that to match the search exactly. So when I run this search with the description equals red, it only shows me the one file, okay, that has that exact match. It filtered out everything else that had extraneous information in it. So a couple of tips in terms of using the search wildcards, using some syntax to refine your search results, so you're not having to scroll through hundreds or thousands of search results. One other search syntax that you may not be aware of is the exclamation point. Okay, the exclamation point can be used as a not equals. Okay, so if I wanted to exclude certain results from my search results, I can use the not equals to. So in the example that I mentioned there, I want to find everything in my vault that is not a SOLIDWORKS file. Well, I'll search at the root level of my vault, and in the file name, I'll say not.sldprt, and I can run that search. And you'll notice if I sort by file types here, go down to my SOLIDWORKS files, I currently have assembly files and drawing files and template files, but no SOLIDWORKS part files. Okay, just so that you know I'm not pulling wool over your eyes, I'll search for SOLIDWORKS part files, and you'll see that I have several of them in my vault here. Okay, so we can use the exclamation point to exclude as an exclusive syntax in our search results. Next thing that I want to talk to you about is creating a search favorite. Okay, a search favorite allows you to save some search criteria for reuse. So if you find yourself running the same search over and over again, you can create the search favorite so you don't have to go and re-specify your conditions for your search every single time. When we create search favorites, okay, they're available from the search tool directly, as well as in the drop-down through Windows Explorer. So we can use them without having to jump through a whole lot of hoops to run those searches. So I'll give you an example of a search that I would probably run on a regular basis. So if I were just in my vault, let's even say I'm in some subfolders here, and I do a regular search for items that I have checked out. So in order to do that, I would come in here, I would open this search tool. The first thing that I would have to do is reset my search path to look at the root level of the vault. So I'll go ahead and select the root level. And then I like to look for files and not folders, so I'll uncheck the box for search folders. And then I'll come over here, select my username from the list of users, and run the search. And you can see I've got maybe a dozen or so files currently checked out. So I had to make 3 or 4 selections in order to run that search. At the same time, okay, if I were instead to have a search favorite that saved that criteria, in my drop-down menu, I've got just a search option right here for checked out by Jeff. And what that does is it launches the search tool, loads the criteria for me, and runs the search all with just a single click. Okay? So we create our search favorites by specifying the criteria like we're going to run a search, and then we can use the star drop-down here, and we can say Add to Favorites. And we can give this favorite a new name, and then select what other users may see or may use my search favorite. Okay, you do need permission in the vault to be able to create your own search favorite. So that is something that you do need permission for, and you can contact your vault administrator if creating search favorites is something that you're interested in doing, but you don't have the ability to do. If you don't see this option here, Add to Favorites, then you don't have permission to perform that currently. So we can create search favorites for based on any sort of criteria. So I often set these up for my customers looking for files in a certain state or checked out by given users or things like that. Common searches that you're going to be running the same criteria on a regular basis. Sticking with the concept of our search favorites, there's a couple of other things that we can do with the search tool to again make it easier, easily accessible, and put some more information right at your fingertips. So the search tool is embedded into the EPDM client browser through Windows Explorer in that drop-down that we were just using. It's also available as a standalone application, and the neat thing about that is that we can actually create a shortcut to the search executable, the search application. And once we create that shortcut, we can also add some switches to that shortcut to automatically have it load with a certain vault name, with a certain search favorite, with a path predefined, things like that. So again, I could create a desktop shortcut to run my my search favorite instead of having to be in the vault to do that. So I'll show you how to do that right now. The search tool is located in your program directory. So if I come up here go to my C drive, Program Files, SOLIDWORKS Enterprise PDM. There is a search.exe. Here it is right here. And the easiest way to create a shortcut to this is by right-clicking and doing the Send To, and you can send it to your desktop, which will automatically create a shortcut. So I'll go ahead and do that right now. And if I look back on my desktop, you can see it's created a shortcut for me. Now, if I wanted to modify that shortcut to automatically include what vault it should search in, what search it should run, all I have to do is right-click and go to the properties of that shortcut. And what we're going to do is we're going to adjust the target, okay, the target path here, and add those switches that I had thrown up earlier on the screen. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll specify the vault name, which in this case was on my C drive. Sorry, I just need the name. So the switch is a \V and then my vault name, which in this case is EPDM demo. And then the other thing that I'll have this do is I'll have it automatically run my search favorite checked out by Jeff that I had just created. So that's a \F for search favorite and the name of the favorite checked out by Jeff. Now the important thing here, in order for this to work, is that none of the switches can contain spaces. Okay, so your vault name couldn't contain a space, your search favorite name couldn't contain a space. So you'll want to think about those things when you're naming your search favorites. So I'll click OK here, and I'll just rename my search. I'll just call it the checked out by Jeff EPDM search. And now, without even being in the vault, straight from my desktop, I can double-click my shortcut. It's going to launch the search tool, load in my search favorite, run that search for me, and I could come in here, look at the preview, look at the data card, whatever else I have from the search results window directly. I can check in the file, I can change the state on the file, look at the history, all of those things that we'd be able to do through our normal EPDM interface, I can do straight from the search results icon as well. The other thing to be aware of is that when we're in our search results, regardless of if we're in the standalone search application here, or if we happen to be in our embedded search window here, is that when I right-click on a file, I've got this Browse To and Browse To in a new window. So regardless of where these files are actually located, in what folder, I can just right-click, click the Browse To, and it's going to take me to the source location for that file. It's going to highlight it for me in Windows Explorer, where I can then look at the bill of materials, look at the contains and where used info, look at the preview, whatever I want to do. It's a very quick way of navigating through an assembly tree, for example. So if I look at my miter saw, again, these same options are available in the contains and where used tabs. So I can come down to a certain component that I've identified and say Browse To, and it's going to take me to whatever folder that happens to be in. I can look at the where used information and browse to that. So it's a real quick way of jumping around your assembly trees, even if the components happen to be shared across multiple assemblies or located in different folders or things like that. So again, we've got our search executable switches that we can run and include in our shortcut. I've got the instructions here as to adding those switches into the target for your shortcut and how to make that work for you properly. And then the last tip that I just gave you about using a browse to. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up there. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat pane in GoToMeeting, or you can email me at jgerardi@goengineer.com. It should be showing on your screen. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or send you a copy of these tips. So I'll stay on the line for a few more minutes to answer questions. Other than that, I appreciate you folks joining us this afternoon for some tips and tricks on optimizing your user experience with Enterprise PDM. Thank you.